Epics 911, welcome to the Thursday, January 19th, 2017 edition of VR News. Let's start with a couple of just quick side topics before we jump into VR News directly. The first one is a comment that I've been receiving probably about the last week since I upgraded the lighting, that maybe what was behind me is actually a green screen. I kind of made fun of this when Exidy was here on Friday because it clearly shows him every Friday in the background. So I asked somebody why would I go to the trouble of making a background via green screen of my actual background when I could just use my background? And the answer was, maybe you're having us on, putting us on, and you're actually somewhere else, maybe in a cardboard box in an alley somewhere, wherever, but not there. But I can assure you, I got a good chuckle out of that this is in fact real, and it is not a green screen. But either way, funny as hell. Next thing I wanted to talk about real quick, also to do with the comments. Generally, when people don't like something and leave a thumbs down, you as a content creator never know why. They may not like you, something you said, everything you said, all your content, some of your content, a phrase you used, what the hell you're wearing, a choice of a song that they were offended, you didn't like, whatever. It could be all kinds of things. But you'll never know why, because it's that, and then they leave. Today, for the first time ever, somebody talked about why they put a thumbs down, which I thought was fantastic because it actually allows me to look at that and improve it if it's something that I need to improve. Now, I'm not going to mention the viewer's name because he may not want that mentioned, but it had to do with the legal story, which I've been opening with the last few days. Now, I and probably many of you happen to feel that's a very important story. That's why it's been my lead-in, because a lot of the VR industry rests on the decision of that case. But with that said, I understand it's not going to be for everybody. That is why, and this gentleman didn't know that, I put timestamps for every single news piece without fail since I've started this. Every single day, every single video has a timestamp. Even if I have, a banal rambling monologue like I'm having right now with you, if it's more than my usual 8 seconds intro, I'll even timestamp that and say intro with whatever the hell I happen to talk about. You'll see that in today's, because I'm still rambling. So anyways, he didn't know that. Now you did. I'm going to make that a more known thing by probably putting up some text at the video at the start, just reminding people for the next little while. All right, with that said, let us jump right into news and start with exactly that, the legal case. So Brendan Erebe, it was his turn to answer some questions. It was also the defense team's, Oculus's opportunity to counter some allegations with evidence of their own. So let's get into that real quick. So what the defense is trying to show is that Oculus had a dedicated engineering focus. They had competent engineers on the team already working on things, that mostly Carmack was a technical advisor. And they showed emails today highlighting exactly that. Even emails where Carmack himself said, you know what, your team's version of that is better than mine. Go with that. It's superior. And throughout that, Erebe was adamant no Zenimax code was used. They also got into some email exchanges between Erebe and then id Software President Todd Hollinshead and Creative Director Tim Willits, where they further established the idea, based on those emails, that there was no problem with them using Doom 3 BFG or Rage, any of that. And that ends with an email from September 2012 where Erebe proposes 2% in Oculus. Zenimax says no to that. They counter with 15%, and that's when things kind of went off the rails and led to why this case is now being tried. Oculus's version is Zenimax stopped talking after that, showed no further interest, so they continued without them. Zenimax at that point says Oculus stopped talking to them and started poaching employees. So that kind of formed the rest of the proceedings for the day. There was also a part where Ereb said they had some condescending remarks thrown their way when they were in an in-person meeting at Bethesda. The president of Bethesda and Donov basically said, you guys are just kids, you should be working with us. If you don't sign, they're not going to let Carmack work with you. And they ended with other emails about what are now being called the ID5, the big 5 employees that left to go work with Oculus. Ereb said, look, those employees, to a person, they weren't happy anymore. They didn't like the new ownership under Zenimax. They were loyal to ID and just had no interest in working under that hierarchy. They wanted change of pace. That's why they moved over. So there you have that. And then this next news story, guys, is why I think the ramifications, the outcome of this is so important. And this was from Polygon.com. They spoke to a legal expert, but they started with the why this is so bad. So supposing Zenimax wins, according to their article, they said they could seek an injunction against Rift sales, possibly even Gear VR sales, which would mean no competition for HTC Vive. And believe me, competition, healthy competition, is a good frickin' thing. You might look at that as a slam dunk for HTC Vive, but it actually isn't. It hurts the whole industry. Of course, Oculus more than anyone else, right? But it has those kinds of ramifications. Now, to win the case, the legal expert said, Zenimax is going to have to show that their code was trade secrets, intellectual property, trade secrets, and that code was used to develop the Rift. And that Oculus knew it was trade secret. They're going to have to basically show that. Finally, they're going to have to prove damages, which could be loss that they suffered, or monetary amount of gain attributed to that code, or finally, the value of royalty that a reasonable person would pay for the code that was taken. And that's reasonable person, not in terms of an actual reasonable person, but for those who don't know about law, it's a law term meant to basically imply just under that circumstance, what is reasonable compensation. All right, let's leave the trial and let's talk about The Lawnmower Man, which is, or was, a book and a movie. And I remember watching it at the time. I liked the movie, but it was pretty cheesy in parts. Pierce Brosnan was in it. It's now coming to VR as a multi-episode HMD-friendly experience, one that you can watch. Now, this also got me to go back to the original, and if any of you have access to that, check it out. It's kind of hilarious. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how it's aged. To me, I hadn't seen it in over 15 years, and I thought in some parts it aged well. You know, the bodysuit, the HMD aspect, but oh my gosh, those graphics are primitive, and there's a really kind of cringy now scene where there's a couple going at it, and my God, would your imagination be better than those graphics? That would probably actually be off-putting and scary, not, romantic or lust-inducing or any of that. So I thought I got a good chuckle out of that, but no announcement on when. They just hope to take it off the storyboards and start production in 2017. Next news story, Triple D60 or DDD60. It's a new European Union funded compression system that they hope is going to make 360-degree video clearer, nicer to look at. And it's part of the EU's research and innovation program called Horizon 2020. It involves a bunch of pioneering video companies. There's film festivals involved. And what they're trying to achieve is basically make online viewing of 360-degree content more viable. And in the project, they are targeting high-quality VR video in the 4, 8, and 12K range, which is insane and very cool at the same time. Yet another example of, I wonder what that will look like in a few months or maybe years' time. Next up, the little art program that could, Tilt Brush. It was pretty much popular from day one. It's had all kinds of, productive updates. Back in October, they open sourced the Tilt Brush toolkit with a bunch of scripts that would allow developers to utilize the models externally outside of Tilt Brush. Well, today they've expanded that toolkit, adding a bunch of vital features. Some of those include a Unity SDK added to GitHub, also support for staple features like audio reactive brushes, various brush shaders that give you the ability to animate and give life to your creations, and also examples of what's possible with that SDK. And to do that, they've included a simple racing game and a first-person exploration via teleportation locomotion, again, to highlight what the SDK is capable of doing. Very cool. Next news story, Vive. Finally, another story where they're throwing around money again. Yet another investment, this time $10 million on VR projects that they say, quote unquote, will create positive impact. How that's going to be benchmarked, the key performance indicators to kind of come to that conclusion that we have established something with positive impact, I don't know. They don't either. They don't get into that. Just that they're going to devote $10 million US to driving VR content and technologies to create positive impact and change. They have one official statement that doesn't give you much more information, but it basically says it's an opportunity to develop and share ideas in impactful ways that lead to change. And through VR for Impact, HTC Vive will fund and support content and tech that create the most powerful experiences to transform our world. It's committing $10 million, and they hope that content developers are able to create experiences that improve awareness, education, and lead to action. Next news story, HTC plans to certify accessories approved for use with the Vive Tracker. So this is an attempt by them to basically do quality control. Quality control so that not every Tom, Dick, and Harry developer who uses the tracker, is going to be able to get it out there. In a way, that's good. We talked about Steam, and, we debated the quality on that, what the article said, and then the comment section, you guys threw that back and forth a little bit, meaning, yes, but you don't want to police it too much. Or some of you, including me, have said, look, there's a lot of tools in place already to gauge quality and prevent you from buying something craptacular. But, and so forth. I still think this is a good move as long as it doesn't prevent creativity, right? Doesn't stall it, impact it negatively in any kind of big ways. If it's truly just to make sure that people aren't wasting money, period. Again, they're going to have to flesh this out, the details of, what you need to do to qualify. And then we can kind of judge it some more. But on the surface, right now, doesn't sound too bad, but I'd like to have more details. PleVR, PleVR, came up with a major update today that's included 3D video support and a statement that 360-degree videos are coming soon. So it's basically going to be a new interface that expands the ability to browse your Plex catalog ultimately for viewing, but now supports 3D video, 360-degree video. As they put it, they want to nail the 360-degree experience in VR. So between this and the story that I talked about right after the trial, where the European Union is trying to make 360-degree content better, we're down the right path, and it's an exciting path. All right, guys, that is it for the news. Cheers as always, and definitely catch you guys on the VR flip side.